Hi everybody, Father Bill Holtzinger here, and this is your Friday Reflection. Well, where were you when? That's my question. This is one of those kind of questions of big events, like where were you when 9/11 happened? I remember very vividly. Where were you when, I was getting a little older, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, or his brother Bobby, or Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King? These events. Those are the ones that framed the 60s. Or when were you, or where were you when the moon landing, the first moon landing happened? Where were you when the space shuttle first launched? Where were you when, now in 2025, a big event has happened? Where were you when you heard or learned about the election of Pope Leo XIV? I myself was in my office and I had a meeting with Manette Malari that you may know. And we were doing some planning, and I had a screen up for my computer, kind of just to the back of me. And there was some stuff going on in the office, and I needed to go check out what it was. And as I turned around, because on the screen was a video feed of the smokestack, the chimney at the Vatican out of the Sistine Chapel, just waiting. And as I turned around to look, I saw smoke come out. And I was thinking, could this be it? Well, let's see. It's kind of gray. I don't know if it's white. It could turn black because there's been times when it's been gray. What is it? And Manette was like, what's going on? Oh my gosh. And sure enough, clearly white smoke. Clearly the white smoke. Amazing. That was just amazing. So that just totally reshuffled the whole cards for that day. Manette and myself, we just stopped. I called our staff into my office. We all kind of watched. We sat down. I think we were there for a good hour at least. Because right after the smoke, the Pope doesn't just pop out of the window, right? There was almost 40 minutes or maybe more between that moment, along with the bells and other things going on, that the Cardinal came out and said those amazing words, Habemus Papam, we have a Pope. And of course, who would it be? And Erin was sitting next to me. She sat down. We were, talking back and forth. And she's our pastoral associate here at the parish, doing stuff with our CIA or OCIA and the homebound ministry and things like that. And we were kind of joking around, like, what name might the person take? I don't know. And who do you think it would be? Like, I've never really gotten deep into the who's going to be possible Pope, because how can anybody know? And I thought, what a waste of time. However, I did know some of the names just because of casual, reading and watching the news. And so she asked, well, what do you think the name might be? And, well, I guess it could be like Matthew. That'd be unusual. It could be John Paul III. And there's just so many places. It could be Francis II. We have no idea. And because I just kind of like, well, who could possibly know? How about this? I said, let's just say his name is going to be Bob. And wouldn't you know, when the Pope's name was announced, they said Roberto Francisco. I'm like, Roberto Francisco. And then they said Prevost. I'm like, I don't remember exactly who that is, but Prevost. Wait a second, isn't that one of the Americans? And I was confused, and I leaned over to Erin, like, what? By the way, the whole staff that was there on that Thursday was now in my office, or crammed in there, standing or sitting. And we were all like stunned. We were like, didn't know what to say. And then they said on the news that this is the first American Pope. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. And I guess, and Leo XIV, still that's hard for me to say. I have to sometimes think about it. And I will stumble at Mass. So please give me a little bit of patience, a little bit of kindness and indulgence, if you will. That's a good Catholic thing. Give me an indulgence to just, when I goof up in this way, because I goof up a lot all the time, but this one way, it's reasonable. Pretty much, right? Francis was hard to remember, and then Benedict before that, etc., because I grew up with John Paul II. Anyhow, so it was a Robert. Robert, yeah. Prevost became Pope Leo XIV. I still got to say it many times. So where were you? I would love to hear where you were. So if you bump into me coming into Mass or leaving out of Mass, where were you? Is this one of those moments? Because for me, it certainly is. This is unprecedented in 2,000 years of Catholic history, of all of Christendom. We have never had a pope from the United States. Now, granted, the United States is not 2,000 years old, but it has always been said that there was no way that the United States would have a pope. They would never allow it because that would be too much power. In other words, the United States is seen as a superpower, and I've mentioned that before. And then so would the Pope. Pope is a superpower. He is the one person, think about it. This is the one person that unifies the largest groups. We can't even say that about countries. Within countries like the United States, we have a president. There's other leaders in different countries, and then they lead their people in their countries. But who leads everybody all over the globe in such a fashion that it's, 1.3 billion is it now? Or is it 4 billion? I don't know. That's a lot of people. And it crosses every culture. So let's say the Prime Minister of England or Germany or whatever the leader would be, they have a certain language, and it's German, or it could be English. But it's not all the languages. What country is that? Well, the Vatican, well, their Latin is their root. The people in those that they serve, and the people that are their constituents, you might say, the people that are part of the Catholic Church, speak all the languages of the world. And so this is why, for many other reasons as well, that the Pope is a centralizing figure. His name is Pontiff. That's one of the titles, I should say. And that means to be a bridge builder. And that's what he's been doing so far. Some people have been already critical of him, which I find sad. It's like, really? I mean, you might remember back a couple of weeks, Deacon Brett gave a homily, and he referred to somebody in a classroom where a professor came out after Benedict was announced, and it just railed on him. And I could have been that same person back then myself, as far as that attitude. But the question was brought to him, so you're not going to give him a chance then, are you? You're not even going to give him a chance. And I think that is very important. We, as Catholics, are called to give everybody a chance. And we still don't know enough about this person. It doesn't seem like he's going to be changing any theology. He's made it clear that he's going to continue Pope Francis's mission work. But it's clear he communicates differently. It's from the moment he walks out on the loggia there. He was dressed differently than Francis was. More traditional. He's been chanting some of the things that has been part of the ritual, like the Angelus on that Sunday that followed, where Francis didn't sing at all. According to one of the MCs I happen to know from back then, he couldn't sing, so everything was spoken. Well, Pope Leo XIV can chant, he can sing. And here's the other thing that I think is valuable to know, that Francis would speak about things, very quickly. He would respond very quickly, a very bright man, a Jesuit trained, and an extrovert as far as I can tell. And this is a little different than Leo will. Leo has already demonstrated that he can answer questions and he'll give good responses, but he thinks about them and he gives you a kind of well thought out reflection on those things. And there's nothing really new. We can go back to how he was as a cardinal and the things he said about the church's teaching. So he's not vying or varying off of the church teaching, but he may bring a different style. And I think this is going to be, and let's see what happens, but my guess will be a more uniter within our Catholic communities, because we have people that are more traditional, we have people that are more progressive, and they don't always get along together. And this might be the glue that brings some of them closer together, that we should give him the chance, because he will, he honors the breadth of the Catholic faith. He's been meeting this last week with the Eastern churches, and he spoke about how important the Eastern Rite churches are to us. And we would see as Roman Catholics that that's really traditional. Well, they're part of the lungs of our church. So I still think it's still early, and if you're skeptical, I would repeat the same phrase you heard earlier. So you're not going to give him a chance either. See, I made that mistake with Benedict, and I was totally wrong. Because as we see, and we have seen, the Holy Father had a history, these Holy Fathers had a history in doing certain things that they would normally do. And then when they became Pope, they shifted their gears to do the role that's part of that particular, you could say, ministry. Cardinal Robert Prevost was in charge of the office for bishops. And so he was there kind of, whenever there was an issue, we'd have to go in and try to solve things or help, discern what persons should become a bishop and how the bishops might need to move, etc. Who should be elected to, or not elected, but, ordained to be a bishop. That kind of stuff would go through his office. Now, as the the Pope, he's got a different role. He's now not just looking at bishops. His, you could say, persons that he serves as the whole world. And it's now just expanded, magnitudes bigger. And so his role now, and it's well known to him what that role is different, and he will be acting different. But he's being himself, being clear. And I think it's been fun to listen to his brothers, because it looks like he's been the one prepared to do this from early age. And it's interesting because some of the cardinals said, at least the ones from the United States, said they didn't know him. So this makes his being a United States citizen more of a nice thing, but it's not actually the full of things. He actually had his great heart in Peru. And if you've seen his dossier as to where he's traveled, he certainly is a world traveler. So he doesn't have like the United States in his pocket for, special interests. The United States is amongst the many of all the churches in the world, and he's just the right guy to do it. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see what goes on. I'm very excited for the way he's going to be, communicating a little bit differently than Francis. I'm excited to see there might be, more clarity and less confusion sometimes. I know Francis would speak off the cuff, as I mentioned, and I love Pope Francis. This sometimes got confusion when he would talk off, the top of his head. I think we're going to see, my prediction, if there is one for me, it'd be Leo's going to be more clear in that he's going to think before he speaks. And when he speaks, it's not going to be anything different about what the church teaches. And actually, the popes have not done that anyway. They have not actually changed church teaching. And their goal is to take the teachings that's already there and share it with the world, and then bring people to him and invite people to be opening. I loved how he's talked about we need to be people in dialogue. It means not shutting people off, but means bringing them closer to us. And that means the Pope often has people that are delegates from other countries, people that we may not expect for him to see, and he will see them. Why? Because he's reaching out like an olive branch to them, to address their dignity, to welcome them. And so it's not as much political in that regard. It's the gospel. That's what the Pope is here for. Well, where were you then, is my question. Where were you? We in our office were listening, wondering, and our minds were blown. The one thing we said that would never happen would be that an American-born citizen would ever be made Pope. Once again, I could not be more wrong. God bless you, folks. I'll see you this weekend. Deacon Brett is preaching. We have our Archbishop's Catholic Appeal this weekend, so maybe you've already turned in your envelope. I will be walking us through part of that in the pews after the homily. And again, I'll look forward to seeing you. God bless you, folks, and I'll see you this weekend. Bye-bye.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus Papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
So we have the first American Pope of all time.
Yes.
The former Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, a native of Chicago. The former head of the dicastery for bishops is the 267th.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Likely a result of trying to continue the Catholic Church's social teaching, which traces itself to Leo XIII, Pope from 1878 to 1903. So we have our 267th Peter, Leo XIV, the former Cardinal
Shocker.
Prevost, the Church of the United States.
Wow. And we can see
He was not on any of our
on the
lists.
balcony of the wake his
I just said, that would not go over well because
We had the first Argentinian Pope in 2013.
So once again, I am so wrong.
Western Hemisphere, this time moving to North America, specifically the United States, an unprecedented development, obviously.